So, welcome to the podcast, Andrew Douglas. Andrew, how are you, mate?
Good. Thanks as always for having me on, and really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I think the last time we actually had you on the pod was kind of unofficial, where we were caught in what we called a tone sandwich. Do you remember that at the
Oh,
World Championships?
at the Worlds,
Yeah,
I tried to find that because I remembered that. So, but did it make it into the episode or not?
it did. I had to put it in. It was good comedy value. Yeah,
If you can let me know the timestamp because I
I
listened
will.
for a while, but there was like so much great content I couldn't find it.
They had that episode. I think the first on the ground one was like an hour and a half long. So no,
Yeah.
you're quite okay. Yeah, so I'll get that to you. But it was quite funny. We were standing listening. Simon Fraser, and I think was it Boghall or something behind us.
Yeah.
I think it was just intense. So it
Yeah,
was.
and
Yeah.
SFU was sounding great as I recall. They're just sounding
Mm,
just absolutely booming.
yeah. Oh, they
Yeah.
drew a big crowd for sure. So that's what I want to talk to you about sound. Yeah, because you're working on something really quite unique. And we mentioned it in last week's show. So this is why I have you on this week. Tell us about this, Andrew. What is this you're working at?
Well, thank God I'm not working at it anymore. Really, I mean, a couple little things we're tweaking, but finally the project is over. So it's
Mm,
actually a project that I think nearly killed me, and it's been going on for probably 18 months or so now. Just basically, you know how it goes, Rab, right?
mm,
So you're doing your thing and you think to yourself, oh, I have a good idea. I'm going to make a course that takes a deeper dive into bagpipe tuning. I feel like I have a lot to offer in that space. And
mm.
then 18 months later, barely. The problem is the yeah, and it's not really a problem, but the problem is just a little bit of background. I started writing this course because we did the Dojo University tuning clinics for many
Hmm.
years.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
And we kind of got good at it. Like we kind of got good at figuring out how we're going to explain tuning, how we're going to teach it, and so on.
Mm,
And that was sort of the real foundation of the course that I started writing. But about maybe two-thirds of the way through the course, it's just like, man, I think this goes a little bit deeper than I think it goes a little bit deeper than just how we teach it.
mm.
I just have a funny feeling this is the way that you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And like how would you demonstrate that? And I'm not quite sure. However, I came up with the idea that maybe I should just interview people that are great bagpipers and
Hmm.
then pick their brains about it, and then I can sort of like see whether or not I'm on the right track or not with how we're thinking about tuning.
Yeah.
So I started with Jim McGilvery was my first one. Colin McClellan and Rab Matheson, they were early ones. And then we
Mm.
went all the way through to just a few weeks ago. I was able to catch Jack Lee for an hour. But
Ah, there you go.
I just talked to 11. I ended up speaking with 11 of the world's best pipers, just picking their brain. And sure enough, like I think that there are some really major themes that go through how everybody tunes their pipes. And it's sure enough exactly the way that we were going about teaching it at the dojo.
Mm.
Like don't misunderstand me. Everybody does things slightly differently here and
Yeah.
there. Like
Hmm.
Stuart, for example, Stuart and Callum Beaumont come to mind as not using pressure variants very often when it comes to tuning their chanter to the drones, but
Hmm.
then a whole bunch of pipers do. But there are common themes. And anyway, that sort of it turned this course into something that we're now calling a suite because we've got the interviews, we've got the theoretical course, practical course, we've got a 90-day training plan because like what good is knowledge if you're not going to implement it, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
anyway, it got a little crazy, Reb. So
I was going to say you kind of got lost in the detail of it all, and there's so much of it, Andre, as well. So
yes,
this also has a book as well, quite
yes,
a heavy duty book as well.
yeah.
Yeah, tell us about
I
this.
It's actually upstairs. If I get a chance later, I'll grab it. But yeah, so basically, we've done this for a while now at the dojo. I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't necessarily learn better, but I learn differently when I'm using a book versus when I'm in front of a screen.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so we've done this a lot, and also I wrote the whole course. That's actually my process. Is at some point when I sit down
same.
and I do something, I try to just write it all out. I'm not like a great writer, but I find that if I write it all out, I can kind of like move things around and think
I
about things
see.
and figure
Yeah.
out the right way to say things and so on and so forth. So I had it all written out anyway, and so we decided to turn it into a textbook. So all of the stuff in the tuning course plus transcripts from all those interviews I told you about go into the
Oh,
textbook as
wow.
well.
Yeah. So I have to say, those interviews are worth their weight in gold. Now, we can check your website and everything here. And, there's little clips on here that I've been really thoroughly enjoying. So for those watching the video right now of the interview, you're now looking at it. So this is
Yeah.
pipersdojo.com/tuning. So here you go. And yeah, it goes into a lot of detail here as to what's all involved in the course. But what I've been really enjoying is like these little clips of people, these
Mm-hmm.
little testimonials of people who've been through it, but also those, big interviews, as you say, like some of the biggest names in the piping scene.
Yeah,
Clips.
if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, Rab,
Yeah.
I've got a 5 minute chunk of all
Mhm.
the interviews I did, or actually almost all. I don't think Jack Lee's in there yet.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So I had been furiously going through these and watching them all just ahead of our interview. I've been really enjoying them. So here we go. It's got Jim McGilvery, Colin McClellan,
Yeah.
Roddy McLeod. And oh, you asked them about the Roddy High A.
Oh, you have
Oh,
to. I asked him. I tried to be as respectful as I could, and I told
yeah.
him, don't tell me the secrets if you don't want to, but also please tell me how you get the high A.
Oh, here, that's worth the price of it there, right? Oh, wow. So there you
That's it.
go.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't buy the course if you think that he's just going to come out and tell you how he gets it, because
No. Yeah.
uh I think it's a process, like I think
Yeah.
all these players have their process that they use, and they're all going for slightly different things, and they all have,
Yeah.
slightly different styles and types of sound that they like. So I guess that's the
Absolutely.
big question too. It's like at some point, you, the listener out there, you have to decide what your process is going to look like,
Mm.
and learn how to get it on a consistent basis. Yeah.
That's it too. Yeah. So no, we have, Matt McIsaac, Lincoln Hilton, Callum Beaumont, Rab Matheson, as you said. There's a lot of big names here, Andrew. Yeah, these interviews worth their weight in gold. So
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed is that through these clips, as you mentioned, everyone has their own little process. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I'm listening to that little Stuart Little clip that you have there. He talks about, how he tunes his drones. He doesn't switch them off. He just keeps all three on, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's trial and error for him. I love what
Yes.
he said. Actually, he says, he takes them out of the box and he guesses. He guesses where they're going to be in
Yes.
comparison to his low A, and then
I think
tries to
that's
find it.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I've always taught. And it was great to put my heads together with these guys, and
Mm,
like, they're doing the same thing, which I kind of already knew because,
yeah,
I played with Stuart for years as a younger person in the SFU band, and like,
yeah,
you hang out with these people and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, but there you go. That's something that really you can't overstate, is that I think in the beginning, 99% of it is just guessing. And
yeah,
and then you guess and you either make things better or you make things worse.
yeah.
But like if you make things worse, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you should go the other way instead, right? And
Exactly. Yeah,
tuning is really built from that basic trial and error framework.
yeah,
Just kind of like riding a bike, right? I mean, so they can tell you got to pedal your feet and you got to try and balance, and you can steer a little bit, but then you got to get on there and try it. And as we all know, some things work and some things don't. But if it doesn't work, you know not to do that again. And if it does work, you can do more of that. And really, tuning is just a feedback loop
that's it.
along
Yeah.
those lines. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask you some of my own questions then for my own experience,
Okay.
and hopefully the listeners will glean something from this. But
All
I've
right.
been having a lot of problems with tuning myself. I don't know. Now you've mentioned this already about you don't like everybody has a set of ears and that everyone's able to tune. All right. My difficulty is now I don't know if any other listeners listening will probably start laughing now, but whenever I have the drones going on my shoulder, I find it difficult to hear. Like I can get the outside tenor, that's fine. I can lock it in with the A, and that's okay. And then
Great.
once I get my bass going though, I don't know what it is. It's like the frequencies cancel each other out. I can't hear.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What's going on?
Well, so we could talk about that. So,
Hmm.
first of all, I was not surprised to hear Because of course, when I tune my bass drone, it's
Hmm.
much more difficult than just tuning the two tenors, right? Once you get the
Yeah,
bass in the mix, it's much more difficult.
I know.
Um,
Yeah, that's it.
the good news is I've got good news and bad news.
Oh,
The
okay.
the good news is I think that's just a fact of nature. And
Right.
I
Okay.
think everybody has a hard time hearing the bass. As a matter of fact, in the interview with Jack Lee, I remember discussing that,
Oh.
and all these other good players. Yeah, the bass is like
Hmm.
it's a fact that it's harder to hear. So uh, the good news is you're not alone, right?
Okay, that's good. I'll take that. So it's
And
not that
then
I'm getting old or hard of hearing or anything like that. No.
exactly, you're not getting old. And then the bad news is that you still have to learn how to tune it.
There you go. There's no avoiding it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is harder. So what I would do
Hmm.
is I would have you practice tuning the two tenors together. No chanter, no nothing. Just
Hmm.
practice tuning the two tenors together. Get good at that.
Hmm.
And then once you're feeling confident, turn off one of those tenors and bring the bass in instead. And then just practice bringing the bass and the tenor in and
Right.
out of tune. I think uh, I was tempted to go with an analogy there, but I think I'm just going to stick with the main script here. So a
Hmm.
lot of people they'll get the bass drone kind of in tune with the tenor, and
Hmm.
that'll be the end. It's like, hey, good job, pat on the back. But what I'd like to
Right.
see you do and other people do is bring the bass in with the tenor as best as you can, but
Hmm.
then just purposefully bring it out again and back in again, and just go back and forth, and
Oh,
maybe do 25 reps of that. And that might seem like a lot, but it's a few seconds per rep. So maybe it's like 4 or 5 minutes. Just do 4 or 5 minutes
yeah.
of bringing the bass in tune with the tenor
And
as an
then taking it out.
exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Hmm.
out, like definitely out of tune. Like, oh yeah, that definitely sounds bad.
Yeah.
And then back in the direction where it sounds better. And go ahead and try and get it perfect. But even if you don't, after a few seconds of trying, just bring it back out again,
Mm.
back in, and just practice listening to it.
Ah,
One of
that's
the
interesting.
things,
Yeah. Mm.
just get those reps in and just think about it. And done is better than perfect. And if you could do that a couple of times a week,
Mm.
I think by the end of the month, now the bass is always going to be harder than the tenors, but by the end of a
Yeah.
month, it won't be that hard anymore, and you'll get the hang of exactly what it is you're trying to listen for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, just get those reps in, right?
I see. So that's all down to practice then, really. So the hours and hours of me going wow, wow, wow over my left shoulder, and I go, is this in tune? Is it not? And then
Yeah.
what I would do is I would send a recording to my tutor and say, I think this is okay. So I'll send a video and hope for the best. And then, Andrew's like, Rob, what have you done to your drones?
No,
So
but
yeah.
I think that you are getting better. And remember, if you just send a one recording to your instructor,
Mm.
you might not quite have it perfectly in tune. And um, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I don't want to say that's not the goal, but I think the short-term goal should just be to get some practice listening to it.
Mm.
And we
Yeah.
want to hear those wah-wahs. We want to hear those beats in between the bass and the tenor. And
Hmm.
that's the most important thing. And then over time we'll get good at just getting those beats to slow to a
Slow
complete
down.
stop.
And yeah, there you
But
go.
yeah, that's always a hard thing. Jack Lee said something that surprised me. Well, which is that when he gets his pipes out, he plays his drones first,
Oh,
uh
really? Oh.
before he puts his chanter in the pipes. He just blows the drones for a few minutes. And I was thinking
Mm.
to myself, yeah, like too cool, I do that too. It's nice to get them warmed up. And he was like, well,
Hmm.
I'm partially getting them warmed up, but I'm also just practicing tuning the drones.
Oh, wow.
And I thought it was really interesting that a master player still would have to practice getting the drones in tune.
Mm.
But yes, yeah, we do. It's an ongoing thing.
There you go. Oh, it's fascinating. Yeah. So, well, I have to talk about then, obviously, the World Championships. Last year's World Championships compared to this, conditions were so different. And we've
Yeah.
seen different tactics at play from different bands. Some not blowing at all, some just a little bit, and all of that. Do you talk about that in the tuning course?
Yes.
Oh, you
Yes,
do?
we do. Yeah.
Oh,
So, and I'm sure I mentioned the 2022 Worlds a couple times because
right.
it was so crazy.
I was.
I
Yeah.
don't think I'm not sure I'll ever forget just how hot that Worlds was. But yeah, as a matter of fact, we do talk about it in the course because I've never seen a course, and I'm sure the internet can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've
Mm.
never seen a tuning resource before I don't think one exists that really talks about the complete game of bagpipe tuning from A to Z. Right.
No.
So
Yeah.
there's the art of getting the drones in tune. We talked about that just now, and getting the
Hmm.
chanter in with the drones. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, Rab.
It
So
is. Yeah.
what the real thing that makes bagpipe tuning so difficult is that there are so many variables that play into the process that no one can expect to stay in tune for very long ever.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's all these variables going on. So how do we think about those variables, and how do we learn to cope with them? That's really the crux of what this course is all about, because
Mm.
even if you can get your pipes in tune, usually by the time you're done, the chanter's changed on
So
you.
much already. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So it goes on how long you've blown for. Are you a wet blower? Are you a dry blower? Or even the temperature, the rain, is it sun? Is it,
Yeah.
so many
And
different things. Yeah.
exactly. And how are your pipes set up? And do you have moisture control? And what
Yeah.
kind of bag are you using? And have you pinched your reed lately, or have you licked it? Or,
There you
you know,
go.
the list goes on and on. Are you feeling nervous? Right?
See that too.
Are
Yeah.
you actually blowing steady? Are you underblowing because you're nervous, or are you overblowing?
There
And
you
how do you
go.
know? And then, and then, by the way, now you've been performing for 2 or 3 minutes.
Mm.
The chanter's changing in pitch. Is that, like, what should I do about that? Can I avoid that in the future? There's
Yeah.
all of that. And so what we try to do, it's sort of why we named the suite the Great Bagpipe Tuning Algorithm,
I was
because
going to ask you
really,
about this. Yeah, that title. Where
yeah,
did it come from?
well, tuning is not just a thing that you do, right?
Mhm.
Tuning is an ongoing process, right? And what an algorithm does, okay, now it sounds, if you've seen The Social Dilemma, it sounds kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
But really, like, an algorithm is just a set of procedures for dealing with ever-changing inputs. That's really what it is. Or dealing with, oh, my laundry machine's going off. Can you hear it?
No, no,
Really?
you're cool. Yeah, no, we're
Oh,
gone.
okay. So so like the computer algorithm has all these inputs that it deals with. Google Maps is a favorite example of mine, right?
Mm,
So we have our thing we want to achieve. We want to get from my house to Big Rab's house,
there you
right?
go.
And then Google Maps has a whole bunch of procedures that deals with a really large number of inputs, right? Like, what roads are available to us. Does he want to take the scenic route? Does he want to avoid tolls? Does he want to save on gas money, right? And so
Yeah.
they have a set of procedures that can deal with all of that and get us our desired output at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And that's really what tuning is, right? So with tuning, we have all these inputs, right? How are the
Hmm.
bagpipes set up? Are we warmed up? What's the weather like outside? What's the weather like inside the bag? Is the person blowing steady? How long until we're on, et cetera, right? When you
Yeah.
watch Richard Parks set up the band, I mean, he has a process in place.
There's a definite system there. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And the system is really just a set of procedures that allow you to adapt to all those variables. And then
Yeah.
what makes the pipe band game so much fun is this is hard enough with one piper, right?
When we
Now we're
add
trying to,
multiple. Yeah.
right. And now, like, Richard's got 25 guys that he's getting to sound like one. For the
Mm.
length of a 5 to 7 minute performance, it's really amazing.
Yeah. That would
Um,
absolutely it is. Yeah.
and then I'll just fill that in and just say, like, I feel like Richard used to be one of the only guys that could pull that off, and now it's so exciting, right? Like, the top
Oh
10
yeah.
bands the top 10 bands in the world are, like, catching on about
Mm.
this, and so we have this, like, incredibly high standard of play
Oh,
now
absolutely. It's incredible.
in
Yeah. So I have to ask you then possibly a bit of a stupid question here. All right. We get asked constantly on the show about equipment. Should I spend thousands of dollars on a set of pipes? Will I sound like a player at the Glenfiddich if I spend this 15 grand on this set of whatever pipes? Does equipment really affect sound in a huge way? If you spend thousands.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think if you're talking about just the pipes themselves,
Mm,
it's amazing the quality of sound that you can get for not a super huge investment.
yeah.
I think that, and Colin McClellan was making this point during our interview as well. It's really kind of amazing.
Mm,
People can acquire an instrument, for just like $1,000, maybe slightly more, but that
mhm.
same instrument can be seen winning the Glenfiddich or winning the Worlds. Like
There you go.
the
Yeah.
actual instrument itself isn't so urgent. However,
Hmm.
all of the configuration choices that you make with
Yeah.
your instrument, like what bag are you going to use? Are you going to use a moisture control system? That's one of the big ones.
Hmm.
Those choices can absolutely play a huge role in the whether or not the tuning will hold,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whether or not the tonal quality will be rich and vibrant. And
Yeah.
yeah, so all of those things, it definitely plays a big role. For like the most obvious example is
Mm-hmm.
when you see the World Championships, the vast majority of those bands are playing very simple setups with hide bags.
Yes.
Many of them are playing cane drone reeds. Now that's like from a configuration standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
that's like polar opposite from what you'll see at the Glenfiddich, where most players are playing synthetic setups with moisture control systems. It's two
Yes.
very different games, and they
Mm.
choose those configurations for very specific tuning and tonal reasons.
Right. I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
because two completely different scenarios, different venues, even conditions, all of that. Yeah. So
exactly.
it just depends on what you want to achieve, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And if I wanted to give some blanket advice to beginners and intermediates,
Hmm.
right? Like when in doubt, stick with a simple setup,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The less
That's
bells and whistles, the less you have to control.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the less that's exactly right. And the less that can interfere conceptually, the less that will interfere with you learning the essentials of tuning and tonal production. And
There
yeah,
you go. Yeah. And we
yeah,
can concentrate on what's going on in the chanter then and get the finger work right. Exactly. Yeah. When the sound
exactly.
looks after itself.
although uh although that what you said just triggered me a little bit, which
Uh
is during the course, it really sort of sunk in with me. And I'm a real lover of bagpipe tone and tuning. Like
yeah.
I would almost rather do that than work on my finger work, almost. But
See.
I think it's a really fascinating thing that you see out in the world, right? Especially with learning bagpipers.
Hmm.
Like when you play the bagpipe, there's very clearly like two sides of the equation, right? There's the tone and tuning side,
Hmm.
and then there's the fingerwork side. So over
The
on the
plan. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So over on the fingerwork side, we've got all the tunes and the embellishment and the phrasing.
Hmm.
And it's just really funny how you typically don't have to um, tell players that they want to work on their finger work and their tunes. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, I want more tunes. I want more tunes. I want more embellishments. Let's play it faster. Let's dial in the finger work. Let's work on it. Let's do
Yeah.
that cool new tune. But it's just really weird that that is so straightforward and obvious for people. But then over on the tone and tuning side, it's not obvious that you should be continually practicing and developing the tuning skills
Mm.
and like the tuning virtuosity, right? So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
talking about we're talking about it's a little bit tricky to get the bass in tune with the tenor, right? But
Absolutely.
like but
Yeah.
people spend less than 1% of their time practicing that,
I
but they're
see.
totally happy to allocate like 98% of their practice time on that new hot jig,
Yeah. I'm
you
guilty
know?
of that. 100% I'm guilty of
Or
that.
like or
Yeah.
oh I'd like, oh, my instructor told me I got to do tailwhip exercises for 30 minutes a day. So we're in there, we're working on the tailwhips, but like
Hmm.
we can do the same thing with our tuning. We can practice just
Yeah.
practice tuning the drones. Practice, as you were saying, like it sounds like you and Andrew are working on some pressure variance
Yeah.
testing to get the drone in tune. Like
Hmm.
cool, like practice that. That's really maybe it's because it's not super exciting that we don't gravitate towards that. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm older now, but like it's super exciting when you get to listen to some of these top bands up close and you hear them really nail that tuning and the tone.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
for
I
sure.
almost
Yeah.
like I don't really mind what they're playing. It's just like
Yeah.
it
It's just
kind
the
of
sound element of it is exciting. Yeah,
yep,
absolutely. Yeah.
yep.
So I don't know. This course is very exciting, and the amount of information that's here, I can't oversell it. So I know this sounds like a huge advertisement, and me and you we're geeking out right now over sound and everything.
Yeah.
So I would encourage our listeners to definitely go and check the link that's in the show notes right now. So pipersdojo.com/tuning. Go and check it out, and I think you have various different like special offers and things on at the moment. So depending on when this podcast releases, of course, go and check it out. It's all full information up there now where you can go and
Yeah.
enroll.
So
It's yeah, very exciting stuff.
October 22nd, that's the day that our sort of opening special ends. So
I see. Yeah.
if we hopefully the episode comes out before then, and you can
Oh,
get
yeah.
the and hopefully you can get in while there's still like an $80 discount
There you go.
for all the stuff. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
you're right, Rab. I think the potential downside is that there's just so it's like really like an encyclopedia of bagpipe tuning. So there's a lot in there, but I think
Yeah.
that it can be a great resource for you in the years to come,
Mm.
as you learn about tuning and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. So no doubt myself and my tutor will be talking about this in depth. I'll be raising this at my next lesson. I'm sure many pipers out there have experienced this, that you go to practice and you blow up and you try to set them yourself, and then your pipe major walks over, makes a few adjustments, and somehow they're magically just they're in tune.
Yeah.
What the heck did they do? And then,
Yes.
a couple of minutes later, they're out of tune. And he walks over again, he retunes and they're back again. It's like it comes over and waves a magic wand. Is it?
Yeah.
So this
Well,
is what we're doing here. Yeah.
so that's a very common experience, and it's easy to
Mm.
come to the conclusion that there's something supernatural going on.
Isn't there? Yeah, that's it. You think
Yes.
that.
um, and uh, and in my experience, that's not the case, right? So
Yeah.
some people accuse me of having supernatural powers, but really, it's the result of practice, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And so I tested that theory as well. By the way, I just asked
Oh.
in most of the interviews, I asked the person I was interviewing, like,
Mhm.
did you have to work at tuning, or were you just born with a special gift? And they all
Yeah.
laughed and
Really?
said, they laughed and they said, "Of course, you fool. I was born with a special gift." That's what they all said.
There you go.
No, that's not what they said. No, the reason they laughed is because, of course, we all go through maybe not a super lengthy period of time, maybe a period of several months or a year, something like that, where tuning does not go well at first, right? Like
There you go.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of trial and error, and you got to just kind of commit to getting it,
That's it.
because nobody gets that just like that. Some people might have a talent for it, but everybody's got to work at it, especially with the bagpipes, because there's just so many variables. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
you got to learn that.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week. And again, I do direct all of our listeners through to the website. Just remind them what it is again there.
It's pipersdojo.com/tuning.
There you go.
And we
Yeah.
had before we leave, just be very careful. Whatever you do, do not go. This is, I want to make sure people hear me. Do not go to pipersdojo.com/tuna, because a lot of people have ended up there and terrible things have happened to them. So do not go to pipersdojo.com/tuna. It's tuning.
Tuning. Right.
Tuning.
We're talking about tuning. We're not talking about a fish. Okay.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
We
That's fair enough.
we want to tune a bagpipe, right?
Yeah.
Not tune a fish.
Not yeah. We don't want a bagpipe made out of tuna. That'd be weird. Yeah.
Exactly. So I just wanted to clear up any confusion. It's pipersdojo.com/tuning.
Tuning. Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. This is so exciting, man. And we're definitely keen to encourage our audience to check this out. So there you are. Thanks a million for joining us this week, man. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
as always. Yep.
Thank you.